And we've got another divorce TV show live stream. They're coming thick and fast right now. And we're going to talk about health with Jacob. It's your applause for the day, Jacob. Feels good, doesn't it? Feels good. So lovely. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm going to get straight in because we met at a networking event and you were talking about something to do with health that I'd never even heard of before, and I've heard of most things. So can we just start with what's it called and what is it?
In terms of what I do, so that would probably be the CHEK Institute, you've probably not heard of. Yeah. So the CHEK Institute, that is, in my opinion, I'm slightly biased, although most of the world will probably agree with me, it's the foremost holistic health training institute, and it was founded by Paul Chek. And CHEK, as an acronym, stands for Corrective Holistic Exercise Kinesiology. So when it comes to mental emotional problems, musculoskeletal injury, athletic performance, injury rehabilitation, we take a spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical approach to the assessment of the individual. So we're finding the root cause of someone's pain, someone's issue, so that we can coach them through a program that creates a lasting change for them. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So let's just kind of break that down, what that actually means. So what I'm hearing is it's truly holistic. You're looking at all aspects. You're not just going to fix a bad knee, looking at the ligaments. You're going to look at maybe there's emotional, psychological, nutritional reasons behind that, which makes total sense. So, but was great. Yeah. I didn't know there was there's like the kind of a whole system like this. So where did it come from? How did it start?
Well, Paul Chek, he started. Well, he's a very, very developed individual. However, one can say that it started when he became the trainer of the army boxing team in the 80s in America. So he grew up with a yogi for a mother, and he grew up on a farm as well. So he joined the army later in life. I'm skipping over a bunch of stuff here, but he became people couldn't understand how he was able to compete in the boxing team in the army and do triathlon all at the same time. So and still beat everybody. So, but it was down to how he was eating, what he understood about how to manage his emotions. So they asked him to be the trainer of the boxing team, and that started his thought of how to bring these holistic principles that he learned on the farm about how to eat, what real food is, and also about the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of life that he got exposed to on account of his mother being a yogi. So he then explored the best of the West and the Eastern practices and then blended them together in his own holistic system, which developed over the next 30 years. And he developed the reputation of the Institute through rehabilitating people that were considered medical failures, essentially.
Wow. So, and obviously this sounds like it's something that sports people have discovered. Maybe they're more likely to hear about it. And what stage did it start to move into non-army people and the civilian population?
Well, when he was in the army for a couple of years, but when he left, he moved from Florida to San Diego, and he opened up he was in a physiotherapy clinic. Can't remember exactly whether it was his own one that he opened up or whether he got taken on and hired it by one first, but he definitely opened up his own one. And then in the mid-90s, he then, after X amount of time in those clinics, decided to set up the CHEK Institute. But in the 80s, he was also one of the trainers at the Chicago Bulls during Michael Jordan's time. Oh. So, but he's always been working with non-sports people as well, like the average person.
If it's good enough for sports, high-end sports people, it's certainly good enough for anybody else. But let's get on to why people would want that. So your average person, let's say, going through a very stressful divorce, may not have a major knee injury, but they are going to have sometimes gut health problems from a bad digestive system. They might be developing what's allergies, things that they didn't have before because of the additional stress. Psychologically, they could be under a lot of pressure, sort of fear, confusion. So these were the not untypical symptoms of going through a divorce, especially one that's got a bit messy. So how could, let's take that person as an example, how could the technique that you work with help them?
Well, that would be the branch of our training primarily that we call holistic lifestyle coaching. So there's comprehensive nutritional and lifestyle questionnaires where we would be screening the mind and the emotions, we'd be screening the nutrition, we'd be screening the organ systems. So we'd be finding out which organ systems are primarily under stress, because one can influence the other. They can have a multitude of symptoms, so to speak, like nutritional, mental, emotional, but one thing will usually be causing that domino line. So we'd be finding out what the root issue is, but then we'd also be optimizing those other symptoms too, but we'd make sure that we find out what the root part is. Maybe the mind and the emotions is the root, which for divorce can be the case, because that's an interpersonal mental emotional thing that can cause stress. Cortisol comes up, gut brain axis via the vagus nerve, that can cause gut dysbiosis and leaky gut, and that can cause larger food particles to go through there and cause an immune response, and even so allergies, things like that, gut problems. But the root can be mental emotional, so we can help them correct that, but we can also work on the mind and the emotions too, so they can navigate such a process like divorce in concert with the nutritional and lifestyle interventions. So we have both at the same time. So someone could go to a nutritionist and just have the nutritional interventions, but if the root cause is mental emotional because of what they're going through, and they haven't learned how to reframe the meaning and the understanding and interpretation of what they're going through, then they've still got constant suboptimal feed into the nervous system, which is just going to make the nutritional intervention revert back to the original state after a while. That's why things don't heal.
That's why I find really interesting talking to you, because it's not just a case of, people will talk about counselling, like that's magically going to make them somehow take away a difficult situation. And obviously counselling can be very useful, but the way you're talking about it, and I don't know if counselling is the right word to use, but helping someone deal with the emotional psychological elements because of this physiological aspect to it. It's not putting a salve on or just making them feel better. It's like they are actively involved, aren't they, in making sure they can deal with this very, very difficult situation. So how is what you've described different from, say, conventional counselling, or is it the same, it's just mixed in as part of this overall process?
Well, a lot of counselling elements are in our training. It's a massive part of our training. Like a typical curriculum for like a counsellor who goes through, say, a 3 or 4 year training pipeline, they'd study a lot of the psychotherapists like Carl Jung and Freud, and but at the same time, a human being is not just one thing. Like, we're a system of systems, and if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But someone, as per that domino line of things that can lead to other things, someone may need a bit of a hammer, and then they need some screwdrivers, and then they need pliers. So if someone hasn't learned how to use multiple things and how they affect each other, then you can only do one thing. And dealing with and finding out what's causing what is really, really key. That's partly going into integral theory and Ken Wilber's 4 quadrants, and like interior and exterior quadrants, and where the root of someone's issues is and how they interrelate. But that is the primary principle. If someone needs primarily to work on counseling and talk therapy, or understanding that what they're going through, if it's, for example, divorce, which is very much what you're dealing with, understanding that someone has the choice to think this is the worst thing ever, or they can understand that also pain is an acronym. Pain is not always a terrible thing. Pain stands, as an acronym, stands for prompting attention in the now. So it's there to make you aware of something. So when you reinterpret what you're going through, you can actually change the impact it has on your physiology as well. Like Shakespeare said in Hamlet, nothing is neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so.
So very true, very true.
And then we can also make sure that we optimize the physiology as well, so that we can physically bolster the system against the hormonal changes that can happen as a result of stress, like cortisol. So, right, making sure we get basically what we call the foundations in. So the 6 foundation health principles: sleep, nutrition, hydration, making sure they're optimized. They're the 3 yin principles: breathing, thinking, and movement, making sure we optimize all of those, so that as they're navigating through such a process, which can also be considered spiritual, like a rebirth in a way, because you're going to be a different person on the other side of it. How someone can set themselves up to have this experience be more like a phoenix coming out of the ashes, as opposed to feeling like they're just a tree that's been set on fire. And
that's such a good analogy. I love that.
Been burnt to the ground.
Yeah, because that's what it feels like. I'm very apt at the moment as well, sadly. What's going on in Europe? So from what I'm hearing is if, for example, you're very stressed with your divorce. You talk about moving different tools in the toolkit. So someone might need a little bit of talking therapy, counselling, so they feel heard, so they feel safe, and then you might move into more coaching mode, which is, what do you want to create here? Let's get away from what I call victim mentality, because it's not, it's sometimes it's necessary for a while. You shouldn't try and pretend things aren't appalling when they are, but you don't want to stay there. So it's then maybe move more into a coaching modality, and then looking at, while you are stressed, it is affecting your endocrine system or your hormones. So this nutritional program is right for your body and the way you work. Is that the kind of thing? Am I interpreting what you're saying correctly?
Yeah, very much. But this is also where the individual and in-depth questionnaires and assessments come in, because we need to get a very clear individual profile as to what that person's starting point is. So, like, we can talk very generally, but then we tailor it exactly to that specific person, which is why we have those individualized assessments, because someone may be able to navigate it quite well. Like, you talk to them in the consultation and also in the initial session when you're going through when you're setting up their core values. And the 4 foundations of our training are what we call the 4 doctors. Doctor Happiness: what is my dream? So for a divorce, what is my dream for this divorce? It's not going to stop. So what's my dream scenario for it? Doctor Happiness, Doctor Diet, Doctor Quiet, rest and recovery, and Doctor Movement. So we need to optimize all of those. Those are the foundations. They're our core values. So you can talk to someone through the core values. They've actually got quite a good head on their shoulders. They can reframe it. They're not bitter. It sucks. Like, let's not kid around. And they're feeling it, but they got a good head on their shoulders. But maybe they haven't got a clue about Doctor Diet. So their hormonal system's tanked. Their adrenals are completely exhausted. They don't know how to optimize sleep because no one's taught them. So that person, we just need to focus on Doctor Diet. Someone else, they may be quite good with Doctor Diet and exercise, but maybe they're doing too much and they're catastrophizing, but because they're doing a lot of, like, I'm going to train, I'm a type A, I'm going to achieve, but oh no, I've failed in my marriage, and now they're just berating themselves, and they don't know how to give themselves some distance. They don't know how to understand that there's a spiritual space where you can essentially witness what you're feeling, where I feel this but I am not this, where you don't identify with the emotion but you allow it to go through your system, and then bring in what Paul Chek calls the pain teacher. What is this pain prompting attention in the now. What is this emotion, even though it feels awful? What is this here to teach me? And how can I turn pain into what I call power, which comes as a result of finding the wisdom. And the power comes from having earned the wisdom from experiencing it. And now you're conscious, because as Edward Edinger says, who's a Jungian analyst, consciousness is a psychic substance produced by the experience of opposites, suffered not blindly, but in living awareness. So because they've now experienced both sides, they can now truly like embody wisdom. It's not just head wisdom now. So, and then how they're going to share that with other people going through it, so they don't hit the same roadblocks. Now you alchemize something painful into something beautiful, which is where most art comes from.
Yeah. Yeah, and most a lot of the people I work with are very much that is they've those who've become professionals in their field. It's come out of an alchemy of their own experience, and often becomes because of it a gift actually, which is hard. I often say to people early on, you don't believe me now. But there is, you are what you're experiencing now. One day you'll look at your soon-to-be ex and say thank you, because you wouldn't be the person you're going to become now. But right now it's just really hard. But it is so true. It's not a platitude. But on that basis, and what led you to come into this work?
My own painful journey, as most Czech practitioners will say, and this goes back to the concept that Carl Jung put forward, who's a personal hero of mine. The concept of the wounded healer. You go through your own painful challenges so that you've lived the experience of going from sort of being sick and in pain and broken into a healed and healthy state. So you now have lived the process that other people are going through, so you can now authentically coach them. Like, it started off with my parents personally. Like, I didn't grow up in the most optimal container. Like this, the soundtrack of my childhood was my parents screaming at each other most of the time. However, that makes you think. It does make you aware. Things are very different now. I'm skipping over 15 years of family history here, but I wouldn't be wanting to help people the way that I am if I hadn't felt like I wanted to just learn about this stuff so I could help my parents heal.
Yeah.
And that is where it started for me, and that's why I found Paul Chek's work and started studying it, just to try and help heal the family, and got to a certain level of saturation where I developed in myself, and my parents had started actually doing coaching work with one of the Czech faculty, who's one of my teachers now, where I'm like, I want to coach other people now. This is why I'm put on this planet. This is what I'm here to do. This is my dream, and this is just what vibrates inside of me in every single fiber and cell of my being and every part of my soul. So it was just so clear. And in hindsight, everything that I've done in my life, from spending time like learning how to write books and martial arts, and spending time in the dance world for a bit as well, and all the fitness training and all the study and the stuff with my parents and all the headaches that I gave them and they gave me and all the rest of it. It's all just put this melting pot of experience in me so I can really help coach people from an authentic position. And I'm now almost right at the end of the third year of the Czech Academy itself, which is 5 years long total. So I joined that in 2020 because that was when I decided I am going to go pro. I am to help people. I studied Paul's work for like the last 10 years anyway, but 2020 is when I was like, right, I'm going pro. This is my calling. This is my purpose in life.
Yeah. And so you still got another 2 years of the academy. So what will you be able to do after that 2 years that you can't already do? Or is it just a case of refining what you can do already?
So so each year, so after the first year, you are licensed as a professional holistic health practitioner. We are taught to train up to our level. So when in doubt, refer out, as we're taught. So if people present with certain, like, so let's say someone has a complex injury, which maybe their atlas bone is slightly out, so they've got an atlas subluxation, and maybe the vestibular system or their jaw is slightly out of alignment, something very complex like that, then I would probably need to refer out. But after this third year, very complex spinal and lower limb rehabilitation is certainly in my wheelhouse, and mental emotional coaching is for people going through very hard challenges, is something that I can help people with. The fourth and fifth years are very focused on complex musculoskeletal rehabilitation. So that would be, and partly because it takes a lot of time, is very nuanced. So the fourth year, for example, integrated movement science level 4, is all about what we call a checkup from the neck up. So it's all about the upper cervical spine, the jaw, the eyes, the ear. And we also have holistic lifestyle coach level 3 in the fourth year as well. So that takes the depth of holistic lifestyle coach level 2, which was mind blowing, and to an even deeper level. And so there's 3 levels to the holistic lifestyle coaching, and there's 5 levels to the integrated movement science with prerequisite courses.
So for the people who maybe don't have a very, very complex spinal thing at the moment, in which case you would, if needed, send them to a colleague who has already specialised in that. For the majority of people where it's more likely to be a lifestyle, stress, gut, just bad health, not knowing why they're ill all the time, depression, of course, and being very careful how we say this, but and I do often get concerned with how many people just pop down to the GP and take a pill instead of looking at actually what's really causing the depression, because it's not a divorce doesn't cause depression. Divorce can put on stresses that if you don't know how to handle them, and you're eating the wrong foods and all of that, can pile in to make that a symptom. So I'm always very keen to interview anyone who helps people, where the only pills they're going to need are maybe vitamin ones. Unless absolutely necessary, she says very carefully, because there are obviously at times. But I think there's people want a quick fix for their problems instead of taking on that responsibility for themselves, for their long-term health and happiness. And I think as parents, we have a duty to do that, because our kids need us healthy. They need us healthy, sane and well. But that kind of work, you're not limited to geographically, are you?
No. The holistic lifestyle coaching works so effectively online. So if one of my clients is currently in America, 2021, I worked with a young woman for 9 months who had some really bad anxiety. Every Monday online, all we did was nutrition and lifestyle work, and a session where we just talked through the stuff in her questionnaires, and we were doing certain exercises. And so that was more the counseling and coaching side of things. No musculoskeletal stuff, because that wasn't her issue. And after 9 months, before 9 months, she sent me a message: I do not have anxiety anymore. And it hasn't come back since. That was 2021.
And that's so massive. I don't mean to interrupt, but that's so massive, because people get these labels, I have anxiety, as if that's what they're going to have for the rest of their lives. And that's even with the medication from the doctor. And you just think, well, that's not, what about how... I love to hear stories where people have managed to turn that around and get rid of that label, and to get rid of those barriers to having a joyful life, because that's what it's about, really, isn't it?
Anxiety is not something that you have to burden yourself with, in the sense that this is with me forever. It's not just like, oh no, I have it now, it's never going to go. That's not true. That's just fundamentally not true, and I've proven that. And knowing what it is, when someone says, what is it? Anxiety is a fear that something is coming that you're not capable of dealing with, that you can't avoid. So it's like, that's coming. I know I'm not able to deal with it and I can't avoid it. And then your system starts to vibrate. Anxiety is very uppity. It's like to excess stress of the sympathetic nervous system. Depression is more down. Depression is more a physiological state where the body doesn't have enough resources in order to actually maintain a happy state and feeling. So this is, again, one is usually the symptom of the other, but usually, again, like I'm getting a little bit too technical now, but this is again what the individualized assessment is for, to find out what's causing what, and then diving into people's untold beliefs and stories. And when it comes to divorce as well, if everyone's doing everything for themselves that's really important and right, but something's still not shifting, then we need to look at the epigenetic side, which is how much trauma has been passed down through the family lineage and the line, to see how much of the trauma that you're feeling is actually yours, or some that hasn't actually been dealt with by previous generations, that was constricted because no one spoke about it, and now it's passed down to the next person that's seeking to be expanded. So whether that someone's carrying the weight of that on their shoulders as well needs to be considered. Not to jump in there straight away, so we deal with the individual first, but if there's something not shifting, we need to consider that too.
Kind of keep going until you get there, basically, to all the different layers and levels.
We're finding, we're going to find the route one way or another.
That's brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Jacob. That's really, really fascinating. And I know that you'll be visiting where all the different platforms where this will be, and adding some links in so people can find out a little bit more.
Yeah,
which
for
will
sure.
be great. And and I really appreciate you giving the time up for to share this with us, and look forward to, I hope you get to help lots of people who are going through major life shifts, whatever they are, because it should be, as you said, we were saying earlier, it can be a catalyst for amazing change. It doesn't have to be the end of happiness forever, which is often what it feels like at the time. So thank you. Sure. Yeah, thank you, Jacob. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate the time, and anything that I can do to help people be as happy and healthy as they can, that's what I'm here for. That's what we all deserve.
Thank you.